The amber glow of the street lamp flickered as Alex Garrison hurried through the winding paths of Oakwood Park. His 5-year-old daughter Sophie's tiny hand clutched firmly in his. The evening shift at the warehouse had run late again, and the babysitter had called with an emergency, leaving him no choice but to pick up his daughter and cut through the park despite the late hour. "Daddy, my feet hurt," Sophie whined, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she tried to keep up. "Just a little further, princess," Alex assured her, adjusting the worn backpack on his shoulder. At 32, the lines around his eyes told the story of a man who'd aged beyond his years. 3 years of single fatherhood after his wife's death had left him perpetually exhausted, constantly struggling to make ends meet on his warehouse worker's salary. As they rounded a bend in the path, Alex noticed a woman standing beneath a tree, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her phone screen. Even in the dim light, he could tell she was dressed expensively. A tailored coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent hugged her slender frame. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "Could you possibly help me? I think I've gotten completely turned around." Alex hesitated. Sophie was tired, they needed to get home, and he'd learned long ago that life rarely rewarded good deeds. But something in the woman's voice, a genuine vulnerability, made him stop. "Where are you trying to get to?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. The woman stepped closer, and under the faint moonlight, Alex was struck by her beauty-dark hair that fell in soft waves around a heart-shaped face and eyes that seemed to reflect the stars above. "I'm trying to reach Westbrook Avenue. My driver had an emergency, and my phone's about to die. I thought cutting through the park would save time, but..." She gestured helplessly at the maze of paths. "That's actually where we're headed," Alex said. "You can walk with us if you'd like." "I'm Sophie," his daughter announced proudly, her earlier fatigue momentarily forgotten in the excitement of meeting someone new. The woman's face softened as she crouched down to Sophie's level. "It's very nice to meet you, Sophie. I'm Rhiannon Caldwell." Alex felt a strange flutter in his chest as Rhiannon stood and smiled at him. He quickly attributed it to anxiety about being late, nothing more. "Alex Garrison," he introduced himself, nodding politely. "The park can be confusing at night. Come on, we'll show you the way." As they walked, Sophie's natural chattiness emerged, telling Rhiannon all about her kindergarten class and her stuffed unicorn collection. Alex noticed how attentively Rhiannon listened to his daughter, asking questions and laughing at Sophie's animated stories. "You have a wonderful daughter," Rhiannon commented as Sophie skipped slightly ahead on the path, suddenly energized. "She's my whole world," Alex replied simply, watching Sophie with a look of such devotion that Rhiannon felt her heart constrict. "Are you from around here?" she asked, curious about this handsome, serious man who seemed so different from the people who usually populated her life. Alex nodded. "Born and raised. We live in the Pinewood apartments just past the park." He immediately regretted mentioning his modest housing situation to someone who was clearly from a different socioeconomic universe, but Rhiannon showed no reaction. "I'm just in town temporarily," she said. "For business." "What kind of business?" Alex asked, genuinely curious. A fleeting expression crossed Rhiannon's face. Was it wariness? Before she answered vaguely, "Real estate development." They reached the edge of the park, where streetlights illuminated the safer, more populated area. Alex pointed down the street. "Westbrook Avenue is just 2 blocks that way." "Will you be okay from here?" Rhiannon looked down the well-lit street and nodded, then surprised him by pulling out a business card. "Thank you for your help, both of you," she added, smiling at Sophie. "If you ever need anything." She held the card out. Alex took it reflexively, though he couldn't imagine a scenario where he'd need to contact someone like her. The card was simple but elegant, with just her name and a phone number embossed in gold. "Have a good night, Rhiannon," he said, feeling strangely reluctant to end their brief encounter. "Bye, pretty lady," Sophie called, waving enthusiastically. Rhiannon waved back, watching as they turned toward the apartment complex. Only when they disappeared from view did she pull out her phone and call for a car. As the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, one of the country's largest real estate development companies, she could have had a security team at her side within minutes. But something about the brief encounter with Alex Garrison and his daughter had touched her deeply. For the first time in years, Rhiannon Caldwell had felt like a normal person, not a billionaire businesswoman whose every interaction was colored by her wealth and power. And as her luxury car arrived to take her back to her penthouse suite, she found herself thinking about the tall, broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and the little girl who clearly adored him. The next morning, Alex woke before his alarm, having slept poorly. Dreams of dark-haired women with mysterious smiles had disturbed his sleep. He shook off the lingering images and focused on preparing Sophie for school, making her favorite peanut butter and banana sandwich for lunch. "Daddy, will we see the pretty lady again?" Sophie asked as he helped her tie her shoes. Alex smiled gently. "Probably not, sweetheart. She was just visiting." Sophie's face fell slightly. "I liked her. She smelled like cookies." Alex chuckled at his daughter's odd observation. "Come on, we need to get you to school." "I can't be late for work again." After dropping Sophie at kindergarten, Alex headed to Garrison's Hardware, the small store his brother owned. He'd picked up weekend shifts there to supplement his warehouse income, and today he needed to talk to his brother about possibly taking on more hours. "Morning, Adam," Alex called as he entered the familiar space filled with the comforting smell of wood, metal, and paint. Adam Garrison looked up from the register and grinned. "Hey, little brother, you're early. Need to talk to you about something," Alex said, leaning against the counter. Before he could continue, the bell above the door jingled, and both men turned to see who had entered. Alex's breath caught in his throat. Standing in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater that somehow still looked expensive, was Rhiannon Caldwell. "Good morning," she said, her eyes finding Alex's immediately. "I was hoping I'd find you here." Adam raised an eyebrow at his brother, then tactfully moved to the back of the store, leaving them alone. "How did you know I'd be here?" Alex asked, confused. Rhiannon looked slightly embarrassed. "I may have done a bit of research. The name Garrison on your backpack matched this store, and I took a chance." She paused. "I hope that's not too stalkerish." Despite himself, Alex smiled. "Slightly stalkerish, but I'll let it slide. What can I help you with?" Rhiannon stepped closer, twisting her hands nervously, a gesture that seemed at odds with her otherwise confident demeanor. "I wanted to thank you properly for helping me last night. Would you and Sophie, of course, let me take you to dinner?" The invitation caught Alex completely off guard. "That's really not necessary," he said automatically. "I know it's not necessary," Rhiannon replied, "but I'd like to, unless—" Her confidence seemed to waver. "Unless you're not comfortable with that, which I would completely understand." Alex studied her for a moment. In the daylight, she was even more beautiful than he remembered, but there was something else about her, a genuine warmth that drew him in despite his reservations. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why us?" Rhiannon considered her answer carefully. "Because in a world where most people want something from me, you and your daughter helped me expecting nothing in return." It was refreshing. The honesty in her voice resonated with Alex. He thought about Sophie, who had been talking about the pretty lady all morning, and made a decision. "Sophie would love that," he said, "and so would I." The smile that lit up Rhiannon's face made his heart skip a beat. "Great. Is tomorrow evening good? Around 6? Alex nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of anticipation in his stomach. "We'll be looking forward to it." As Rhiannon turned to leave, she paused. "Is there somewhere Sophie particularly enjoys?" Alex laughed. "She's 5. Her culinary preferences basically extend to chicken nuggets and spaghetti." "Spaghetti it is, then," Rhiannon said with a grin. "I know just the place." After she left, Adam emerged from the back room, a knowing smirk on his face. "So, want to tell me about the gorgeous woman who tracked you down?" Alex shook his head. "It's not what you think. We just helped her find her way through the park last night." "And now she's taking you to dinner," Adam pointed out. "Seems like more than gratitude to me." Alex busied himself with straightening a display of screwdrivers. "Don't start, Adam. She's clearly from money, way out of my league." Adam clapped him on the shoulder. "Maybe let her decide that." "It's been 3 years since Melissa died, Alex. It wouldn't be a betrayal to let someone new in." Alex didn't respond, but his brother's words lingered in his mind for the rest of the day. The following evening, Alex found himself more nervous than he'd been in years as he helped Sophie into her favorite purple dress. He'd settled on clean jeans and his one decent button-down shirt, hoping it was appropriate for wherever Rhiannon was taking them. "You look handsome, Daddy," Sophie declared, reaching up to smooth his collar with her small hands. Alex smiled, his heart full. "And you look beautiful, Princess." The buzzer rang precisely at 6, and Alex opened the door to find Rhiannon standing there, breathtaking in a simple blue dress. She held a small gift bag in one hand. "Hi," she said, her eyes taking in his appearance with evident appreciation. "You both look wonderful." Sophie beamed at the compliment, then gasped when Rhiannon knelt and held out the gift bag. "This is for you, Sophie." Inside was a small, exquisitely crafted unicorn figurine. Sophie's eyes widened in delight. "You remembered I love unicorns?" she exclaimed, carefully holding the sparkling creature. "Of course I did," Rhiannon said softly, meeting Alex's eyes over Sophie's head. The genuine warmth in her expression made him swallow hard. They walked to a charming Italian restaurant just a few blocks away. Alex had passed it many times but had never been inside, knowing it was beyond his budget. The hostess greeted Rhiannon by name and led them to a private corner table set with a child-sized chair for Sophie. "You come here often?" Alex asked as they settled in. Rhiannon nodded. "They make the best tiramisu in the city." "And," she added with a conspiratorial wink at Sophie, "their spaghetti is magical." Throughout dinner, Alex found himself increasingly drawn to Rhiannon. She was intelligent and funny, but what impressed him most was how she engaged with Sophie, listening to his daughter's stories with genuine interest and answering her endless questions with patience. "So, real estate development," Alex said as they enjoyed dessert tiramisu for the adults and ice cream for Sophie. "What does that involve exactly?" Rhiannon hesitated, and Alex sensed she was carefully choosing her words. "I help decide which buildings get built where, essentially." "It's a lot of meetings and paperwork." "She sounds like Miss Rogers," Sophie piped up, referring to her kindergarten teacher. "Always doing papers." Rhiannon laughed, seemingly relieved by the interruption. "What about you, Alex? Have you always worked at the warehouse and the hardware store?" Alex shook his head. "I was studying engineering when Sophie was born, had to put that on hold." He didn't add that after his wife's death, returning to school had become an impossible dream. "What kind of engineering?" Rhiannon asked, leaning forward with interest. "Structural." "I've always been fascinated by how things are built, what makes them stand strong." Something flickered in Rhiannon's eyes. "That's remarkable. I work with structural engineers all the time." The evening passed quickly, and soon it was well past Sophie's bedtime. The little girl was fighting to keep her eyes open, clutching her unicorn figurine tightly. "We should get her home," Alex said reluctantly. Rhiannon nodded and settled the bill before Alex could even reach for his wallet. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb. "Let me drive you," she offered. "It's late, and Sophie's tired." Too exhausted to argue, Alex agreed, and soon they were pulling up outside his apartment building. Rhiannon insisted on walking them to the door, Sophie now fast asleep in her father's arms. "Thank you for tonight," Alex said softly as he fumbled for his keys. "It's been a long time since we've had an evening out like this." "Thank you for saying yes," Rhiannon replied. She hesitated, then added, "I'd like to see you again, both of you." Alex looked at her in the dim hallway light, feeling a connection he hadn't expected. "I'd like that too. Rhiannon smiled and leaned in to place a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Good night, Alex." As he watched her walk away, Alex felt something stir within him, a feeling he'd thought long buried with his wife. Hope. Over the next few weeks, Rhiannon became a regular presence in Alex and Sophie's lives. She joined them for picnics in the park, brought books for Sophie, and even attended the 5-year-old's dance recital, cheering louder than anyone. For Alex, each moment with Rhiannon revealed new facets of her character that drew him deeper under her spell. She was compassionate, brilliant, and surprisingly down to earth for someone who clearly came from wealth. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding something back. One evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, they sat together on Alex's small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. "Can I ask you something personal?" Alex said, gathering his courage. Rhiannon nodded, though he noticed a slight tension in her shoulders. "You're clearly successful, educated, beautiful. Why are you spending your time with us, with me?" The question had been weighing on him for weeks. Rhiannon was quiet for a long moment. "When I'm with you and Sophie, I feel real, like I'm just Rhiannon, not." She trailed off, then reached for his hand. "You see me for who I am, not what I have. And what do you have?" Alex asked softly, sensing they were approaching whatever secret she'd been keeping. Before she could answer, his phone rang the babysitter from Sophie's school, calling to say she couldn't make it tomorrow for the after-school hours. Alex apologized to Rhiannon as he tried to figure out a solution, panic rising in his voice. "I have to be at the warehouse, and Adam can't take her," he explained. "I might have to call in sick, but I can't afford to lose the hours." "I could watch her," Rhiannon offered immediately. Alex looked surprised. Don't you have work?" "I make my own schedule," she said with a small smile. "I'd love to spend the afternoon with Sophie." The next day, Rhiannon arrived at Alex's apartment promptly at 3, armed with art supplies and baking ingredients. Sophie was thrilled to see her, and Alex left for work feeling grateful but increasingly curious about the woman who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. When he returned home that evening, the apartment was filled with the smell of fresh cookies, and laughter echoed from Sophie's room. He found them sitting on the floor, surrounded by drawings, Sophie enthusiastically explaining her artwork to an attentive Rhiannon. "Daddy," Sophie exclaimed when she saw him. "Look what we made!" As Sophie showed him their creations, Alex caught Rhiannon's eye, mouthing a silent thank you. The smile she gave him in return made his heart swell. Later, after Sophie was asleep, Rhiannon helped Alex clean up the kitchen. "She's an amazing child," Rhiannon said as she dried a mixing bowl. "So creative and kind. You've done an incredible job with her." "Thank you," Alex replied, touched by her words. "It hasn't been easy since her mother died, but she makes every struggle worth it." Rhiannon placed the bowl down and turned to face him. "You're an extraordinary father, Alex, and," she took a deep breath, "an extraordinary man." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken feelings. Before he could overthink it, Alex leaned forward and kissed her, softly at first, then with growing intensity as she responded eagerly, her hands moving to his shoulders. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "I've wanted to do that since the night in the park," Alex admitted. Rhiannon's eyes shimmered with emotion. "So have I." That night marked a turning point in their relationship. Rhiannon began staying for dinner more often, helping Sophie with her homework, and sharing quiet moments with Alex after Sophie went to bed. They spoke of their pasts, Alex's dreams of finishing his degree, Rhiannon's complicated relationship with her demanding father who had built a business empire. Yet Alex still sensed Rhiannon was holding back crucial details about her life, and his curiosity finally got the better of him. One evening, after putting Sophie to bed, he decided to do something he'd never done before. He searched for Rhiannon Caldwell online. The results left him stunned. Rhiannon Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, Forbes 30 under 40, estimated net worth $2.4 billion. Article after article detailed her business acumen, philanthropic efforts, and status as one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country. Photos showed her at galas and board meetings, looking every inch the corporate titan. Alex sat back, his mind reeling. The woman he'd been falling for, the woman who baked cookies with his daughter and washed dishes in his tiny kitchen, was one of the wealthiest people in America. The next day, when Rhiannon texted to ask if she could come over that evening, Alex responded with a simple, "We need to talk." She arrived an hour later, concern evident on her face. Sophie was at a sleepover with her cousin, leaving them alone in the apartment. Alex wasted no time. "Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" he asked, showing her the articles he'd found. Rhiannon's face fell. "I was going to tell you, Alex. I was afraid." "Afraid of what? That I would ask for money, try to take advantage of you?" "No," she exclaimed, reaching for his hand, which he reluctantly allowed her to take. "Afraid that it would change things between us, that you'd see me differently." Alex ran his free hand through his hair in frustration. "Of course it changes things, Rhiannon. You're a billionaire. I'm a warehouse worker living paycheck to paycheck. We're from completely different worlds." "That doesn't matter to me," she insisted, her eyes pleading with him to understand. "It should," he countered. "What could I possibly offer someone like you?" Rhiannon's eyes flashed with sudden anger. "Someone like me? What does that mean exactly? Am I not allowed to care about you because of my bank account, to love your daughter, to fall in love with you?" The word love hung in the air between them. Alex's anger deflated slightly. "You're falling in love with me?" he asked quietly. "I've already fallen," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I love how you put Sophie above everything. I love your integrity and your kindness. I love how you see me, the real me, not the CEO or the heiress." Alex looked at her, this beautiful, successful woman who somehow wanted him, and felt his resolve weakening. "What happens when you get tired of slumming it with us? When you realize I can't give you the life you're accustomed to? Is that what you think this is?" Rhiannon asked, hurt evident in her voice. "Some kind of poverty tourism? Alex, I've never been happier than when I'm in this apartment with you and Sophie. Money doesn't buy happiness. That's not just a saying, it's my reality." She moved closer to him, placing a hand on his chest. "The night you helped me in the park, I just walked out of a charity gala surrounded by people who only saw my wealth. You saw a woman who needed help, nothing more. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Alex covered her hand with his own, conflicted. "I don't want Sophie to get hurt if this doesn't work out." "Neither do I," Rhiannon said earnestly. "But I'm all in, Alex. I love you both, and I want to be part of your lives if you'll let me." Looking into her eyes, Alex saw nothing but sincerity. Slowly, he pulled her closer. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted. "But you have to promise me something." "Anything," she replied immediately. "No more secrets. And no trying to change our lives with your money. If this is going to work, it has to be real." Rhiannon nodded, her face serious. "I promise." "But will you consider one thing, not for me, but for yourself?" "What's that?" "Let me help you finish your engineering degree, not as a handout, but as an investment in our future." The words "our future" sent a warmth spreading through Alex's chest. Could they really have a future together, despite their differences? "I'll think about it," he conceded, then pulled her into a kiss that conveyed all the emotions words couldn't express. In the weeks that followed, they navigated their new understanding of each other. Rhiannon was more open about her work, occasionally taking video calls from her office or discussing business challenges with Alex, whose practical perspective she valued. In turn, Alex began to see that her wealth, while vast, didn't define her any more than his lack of it defined him. 6 months after their first meeting in the park, Rhiannon invited Alex and Sophie to her penthouse for the first time. Sophie was wide-eyed at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but quickly made herself at home. Delighted to discover, Rhiannon had created a special playroom just for her. That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep in the guest room Rhiannon had decorated with unicorns and stars, Alex joined her on the balcony. "Thank you for bringing her here," Rhiannon said, leaning into him as they looked out at the city lights. "For trusting me enough to let me fully into your lives." "Thank you for loving us exactly as we are," Alex replied, turning to face her. "For seeing value in a struggling single dad and his chatterbox daughter," Rhiannon laughed softly. "You two are the most valuable things in my life." Her expression grew more serious. "Which is why I wanted to ask you something important." Alex's heart rate quickened as she took his hands in hers. "I know we come from different worlds, and I know it's only been 6 months, but I've never been more certain of anything," Rhiannon said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her eyes. "I love you, Alex Garrison. I love Sophie. I want us to be a family." Alex's breath caught in his throat. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" Rhiannon nodded, pulling a small box from her pocket. "Will you marry me? Not the billionaire CEO, but just me, the woman who got lost in a park and found her way home." Alex looked at the simple gold band in the box, then back at Rhiannon's face, illuminated by moonlight and hope. In that moment, all his doubts and insecurities faded away. What mattered wasn't their different backgrounds or bank accounts, but the love they'd built together. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto his finger, Alex pulled Rhiannon into his arms, sealing their commitment with a kiss that promised forever. 1 year later, Alex stood at the altar in a small garden ceremony, watching as Sophie walked down the aisle, proudly scattering flower petals. Behind her came Rhiannon, radiant in a simple white gown, her eyes never leaving his. They had compromised on so many things: living arrangements, a comfortable house halfway between his old neighborhood and her office, finances, a joint account alongside their separate ones, and careers. Alex had returned to school part-time while working at Caldwell Enterprises' new community development division. But on the important things, there had never been any need for compromise. Their love for each other, their dedication to Sophie's happiness, and their commitment to staying grounded despite Rhiannon's wealth. As Rhiannon reached him, Alex took her hands in his, marveling at how a chance encounter in a dark park had changed everything. "Ready," he whispered. Rhiannon squeezed his hands, her smile radiant. "I've been ready since the night you helped a lost woman find her way home." Sophie beamed up at them, secure in the knowledge that her family, once broken, was now whole again. And as they exchanged their vows beneath the autumn sky, Alex knew with absolute certainty that the true wealth in life had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love, the kind that appears unexpectedly, breaks down walls, and builds something beautiful from the most unlikely beginnings.